Imagine you're hiking a narrow mountain ridge. Wind howling in your ears, loose gravel sliding under your boots, drop-offs on both sides that your brain is politely trying not to think about. You're watching your footing, not the sky. And then the world goes dark. A shadow swallows you. Not a cloud, not a passing bird. A moving wall of wings. You feel more than hear the rush of air as something huge slices past your head, so close that your backpack jerks, and you swear you heard claws scrape fabric. You spin around, heart already sprinting, and for a split second you see it. An eagle. Not the cute logo version. A giant raptor with a wingspan wider than you're tall, eyes locked, talons like hooked knives, beak built to punch through bone. This is an animal that could kill a monkey in seconds, that has been filmed dragging goats off cliffs. You'd think this is it, right? Nature's plot twist. Top predator versus soft, slow hiker. But it doesn't circle back. It doesn't even try. The bird tilts one wing, catches an updraft, and just vanishes down the ridge. No second pass, no attack from behind, no dramatic sky battle. You're left standing there, heart jackhammering, knees shaking, realizing that if that thing had actually wanted you, you wouldn't have had time to flinch. And yet, it chose not to. How's that for emotional whiplash? That moment, that mix of terror and weird relief, hides a really strange paradox. The deadliest predators in the sky absolutely have the tools to end us. Talons longer than a grizzly bear's claws. Dive speeds faster than a race car. Beaks that can snap through turtle shells. These are purpose-built hunting machines. And still, fatal attacks on humans are so rare they show up as individual stories, not statistics. Believe it or not, most of the time when an eagle or hawk hits a person, it's defending a nest or stealing a hat, not trying to eat anyone. Meanwhile, we're the ones wiping them out. While we swap scary bird stories, a lot of these raptors are the animals actually teetering on the edge, shot for getting too close to farms, poisoned by rodent bait, starved as forests fall and cliffs get blasted for roads, smashed into power lines and skyscraper glass. Some populations are down to just a few hundred breeding pairs, clinging on in scattered patches of habitat. So what if I told you the real mystery isn't, why don't they hunt us more? But, why do they still tolerate us at all? In this video, we're going to break down how these sky hunters evolved, why physics and energy budgets make humans such terrible prey, the rare moments when they really do strike, and how our growing cities are quietly rewriting the rules between us and the shadows overhead. Speaking of, let's get back to it, because the next time the sky turns on you, you'll want to know what's really going on. So let's talk about what's actually up there, watching you from above. Because when I say, deadliest predator in the sky, I'm not talking about some fantasy dragon. I mean real animals with hardware built to kill. Raptors, birds of prey, eagles, hawks, falcons, owls, vultures. Different families, same basic blueprint, a hooked beak for tearing, talons like living grappling hooks, and forward-facing binocular vision that locks onto a target with sniper-level precision. Imagine an entire group of creatures that nature has been beta testing for tens of millions of years just to perfect one thing, hitting hard from above. You'd think that combination would make us their favorite snack. I mean, these are birds that can fold their wings, drop out of the sky at highway speeds, and drive claws, on a harpy eagle, longer than a grizzly bear's, straight into bone. Golden eagles knock goats off cliffs. Crowned eagles can kill monkeys and small antelope in dense African forests. On paper, we look pretty similar to a slow, hairless primate, right? But here's the twist. Almost everything you've heard about them hunting people is either wildly exaggerated or just wrong. Those old stories about eagles flying off with babies? No verified evidence. The viral clip of a bird scooping up a kid in a park? CGI. Fatal attacks on humans are so rare that scientists talk about individual cases, not statistics. When eagles or hawks do hit people, it's almost always because we walked too close to a nest, not because they saw a Lunchable in a t-shirt. Meanwhile, the birds we're scared of are the ones actually in danger. Harpy eagles in Central and South America, Philippine eagles in island forests, crowned eagles in shrinking African woodlands. Many of these top raptors are hanging on by a thread. Small ranges, collapsing prey bases, forests carved up for farms and cities. Believe it or not, humans kill more raptors every single year through habitat loss, poisoning, and collisions than raptors have killed humans in all of recorded history. How's that for who's really the apex predator? And yet, the fear sticks. We hike under their nests, build houses on their cliffs, put roads through their hunting grounds, and still worry we're going to get carried off. So here's the real question. If some of these birds can kill monkeys, goats, even small deer, what invisible line keeps them from seeing us as just another meal? Especially in places where people and raptors share the same forests and skylines. What if I told you that line isn't just about size, it's about physics, energy budgets, and a very cold calculation about risk? In the next part, we're going to rewind their evolutionary story and zoom in on specific species, from harpies and golden eagles to city falcons and night-hunting owls, to see why, every day, you're surrounded by animals designed to kill, that almost always choose not to. The rare times they don't? That's where it gets interesting. So let's rewind the tape. Way past knights and castles, past mammoths, past the first humans even thinking about fire. Imagine forests in the Jurassic, 160 million years ago, packed with feathered dinosaurs gliding between conifers, hunting little lizards and mammals that looked more like shrews than us. No cities, no apes with spears. Just small, nervous creatures and the things that ate them. Those early proto-birds weren't born perfect. They were clumsy experiment kits. Feathers that started out for warmth or display slowly got hijacked for gliding, then powered flight. Hollow bones shaved off weight. Tails shrank into stabilizers. And those feet? Over millions of years, they morphed into the raptor toolkit. Curved talons, gripping tendons, and that signature move where they punch down from above like a living claw machine. You'd think a predator built like that would eventually look at a human and go, "Yeah, that'll do." But we just weren't there. For most of bird evolution, the menu was simple: small vertebrates, fish, and carrion. Tiny dinosaurs chasing even tinier snacks. As some lineages scaled up, they didn't suddenly jump to giant prey. They stretched their niche just enough to stay efficient. Beaks narrowed into hooks for tearing flesh, or broadened for ripping into carcasses. Talons thickened for grabbing monkeys, rabbits, or fish, not wrestling something that can throw rocks back. Believe it or not, even the biggest eagles today can only carry about a third of their own body weight in flight. That's perfect for a monkey or a goat. A full-grown human? That's not a meal. That's a bad engineering choice. Here's the timing mismatch that really matters. Modern-style large raptors, the ones we think of as apex sky hunters, are very young compared to their dinosaur roots. Modern humans are even younger. By the time Homo sapiens walked onto the scene with fire, sharp tools, and the habit of yelling for backup, raptors had already spent tens of millions of years perfecting strategies around smaller, safer, more predictable prey. We crash the party late, already armed and angry, and evolution has momentum. Once a lineage is tuned to a certain prey size and lifestyle, it doesn't just pivot because a new, risky animal shows up. That's evolutionary inertia. To turn eagles into specialized human hunters, you'd need massive, long-term selective pressure, starving birds that only survived if they gambled on us and won. That never happened. If anything, the pressure went the other way. We shot them, trapped them, cut down their nesting trees. We became the danger, not the opportunity. What if I told you this ancient history still shapes what happens over your head right now? In the next section, we'll zoom into specific species. Harpy eagles stepping over full-grown humans in the canopy to grab sloths, crowned eagles that mostly stick to monkeys even when kids are around, and golden eagles that would rather yank goats off cliffs than bet on a two-legged ape with a rock. So let's talk about the part the movies always skip, the physics. Because up there, in raptor world, you're not a potential snack. You're a terrible flight plan. Imagine you're a golden eagle for a second. You weigh, what? 4 or 5 kilograms. On the bigger end, some huge eagles hit 6 or 7. Impressive bird, tiny compared to you. Now, here's the catch. In steady flight, most of these guys can only carry about 1/3 of their own body weight. That's maybe 2 kilos. A rabbit, a marmot, a monkey limb. Not an 80-kilogram primate in jeans. You'd think, looking at those talons and those viral videos, that an eagle could just swoop in and airlift a kid. But the math is brutal. Even a 20-kilogram child is way beyond what a 6-kilogram bird can safely haul. At best, they might drag or knock something that big for a moment, not cruise off into the sunset with it. Wings have limits, and gravity does not care about your action movie. And that's just the lift problem. Now add the energy budget. Every flap, every dive, every long climb back to a perch is paid for in calories. Raptors live on a razor-thin edge where missing a few meals can mean starvation. So they pick targets they can hit hard, pin fast, and finish quickly. A squirrel that freezes. A monkey distracted for 2 seconds. A goat that can be toppled off a cliff. Not an animal that can twist, grab, punch, and scream for help. Believe it or not, for a bird of prey, the real horror story isn't failed hunt. It's successful strike, but with damage. A broken talon isn't just a chipped nail, it's like snapping a finger you use to kill with. A fractured wing bone? That's game over. Even badly damaged primary feathers can turn a master flyer into something that can't steer or climb well enough to hunt. One bad decision against the wrong prey can end an entire hunting career. That's why evolution has been quietly, ruthlessly editing out the daredevils. The raptors that went for big, dangerous targets didn't leave as many offspring as the ones that stuck to safer meals. Over millions of years, you end up with birds that are built to assess risk in a split second and bail out if things look sketchy. How's that for natural selection as a safety officer? Look at golden eagles again. Those famous clips of them hitting goats or small deer. They're not trying to deadlift a whole ungulate to the sky. They're using terrain, slamming from behind, trying to knock the animal off balance or over a ledge. Crowned eagles in Africa mostly stick to monkeys, even when children are nearby, because primates that can grab back are bad news. Humans take that to another level. We have hands, we punch, we throw rocks, we use tools. From a bird's eye view, you're not food. You're a landmine. So if physics, energy, and injury risk all scream, "Do not engage," why do we still see those rare headlines about eagles or owls slamming into people? Are they secretly testing the limits, or is something else going on entirely? In the next part, we'll dig into those weird encounters, nighttime owl hits, hat-grabbing hawks, and the moments when the sky actually does come for us. But if you really want to see what built to kill looks like, you have to leave the open sky and step into the trees. Imagine you're standing in a rainforest so dense the sun barely makes it to the ground. It's humid. It's loud with insects and distant howler monkeys. And then, for a second, everything just pauses. A shadow glides silently under the canopy, threading through branches that should be impossible to fly through, and you don't hear a single wing beat. Out of that shadow, it appears. A huge bird with a dark, steel-gray armor of feathers, a flared black crest like a crown gone rogue, and yellow eyes that look straight through you. This is the harpy eagle, the jungle's falling guillotine, a treetop tiger with wings. Yeah, you heard me right. Perched on a branch, it's gripping a howler monkey by the spine with legs as thick as a human wrist, like it's holding a grocery bag. You'd think that has to be exaggerated, right? Believe it or not, this thing is one of the most powerful eagles on Earth. Its talons are longer than a grizzly bear's claws, curved black hooks that can punch through bone, and its grip is strong enough to snap a monkey's arm or crush a sloth's ribs in an instant. This is a creature literally engineered by evolution to be a primate problem. It's not going after mice. It's not nibbling on frogs. A big harpy can drop through the canopy, slam into a monkey or a sloth that weighs as much as a small child, and be back in the air before the rest of the troop even figures out which direction to scream. How's that for an ambush specialist? So here's the weird part. In the same forests, you've got photographers, loggers, and researchers walking around under its hunting routes, staring up with binoculars, making noise, basically advertising themselves. And this airborne guillotine just flies right past. No dive, no test strike, nothing. What if I told you this bird can kill a monkey in seconds, but has zero interest in a slow, loud, two-legged animal that can't even climb properly? We are technically primates in its world. We're the right general shape, and sometimes even the right size, but harpies don't treat us like food. To them, we're more like unpredictable tree decorations that occasionally cut the forest down. In this segment, we're going to step into the harpy's point of view. How does a sky predator that rules the canopy decide what's on the menu and what's off limits? Why does an apex arboreal hunter, with all the tools to hurt us, still refuse to add humans to its list of targets? Stick around, because once you see the forest through its eyes, a lot of our fears about killer eagles start to look very different. To do that, we have to leave the ground. Imagine climbing a living skyscraper, a lowland tropical rainforest tree in Central or South America, 40, 50 meters tall, its crown disappearing into a ceiling of leaves. Up here, the air is cooler, the light turns this filtered green, and the world stops being flat. It becomes a three-dimensional maze. Branches cross above, below, and beside you. Vines hang like tripwires. Monkeys and sloths don't walk through this space, they flow through it, slipping from branch to branch like ghosts that memorized every shortcut 1,000 years ago. You'd think a predator would struggle to keep up in this chaos, right? Nope. This is exactly where the harpy eagle feels at home. Taxonomically, it's a true eagle in the family Accipitridae, part of the group we call booted eagles because their legs are fully feathered, like they're wearing fluffy white pants. It's related to open country hunters like golden eagles, but it didn't follow them out into cliffs and wide valleys. It doubled down on the forest. While a golden eagle is built to soar over mountains and chase running prey, the harpy is a close-quarters brawler, tuned for ambush inside the trees. Look at the body plan. This bird is 6 to 9 kilograms of muscle and attitude, but the wings are shorter and broader than you'd expect for something that big. That stubby shape lets it bank hard, break fast, and thread the needle between trunks where a longer-winged eagle would just crash and, well, instantly lose the hunting game. Its tail works like a rudder, flicking it around branches in tight S-curves. The legs are ridiculous. Thick, scaled, and so powerful they look like they belong on a small dinosaur, not a bird. The talons. Each inner claw can be longer than a grizzly bear's, and they can wrap almost completely around a monkey's torso. Yeah, you heard me right. This thing basically comes with built-in primate handcuffs. Even the paint job is functional. Black and white plumage, with soft gray, breaks up its outline in that dappled canopy light, so when it sits motionless on a branch, it just dissolves into the shadows. Huge forward-facing eyes drink in what little light makes it through the leaves, giving it depth perception and low-light vision that turn that green gloom into a clear hunting arena. And then there's the double crest. When it's relaxed, the feathers lie flat and the bird looks almost sleepy. When it's alert, those plumes snap up into a kind of feathered crown, helping funnel sound toward its ears and broadcasting, in case any monkey is paying attention, that the boss is awake. All of this screams one thing: monkey and sloth killer, not human hunter. Its weight, its wings, its talons, its eyes, even its color pattern are locked into a niche where grabbing a branch-running mammal is worth the risk, and tackling a full-sized human would be, evolutionarily speaking, a terrible business decision. But if it's that specialized, what happens when its forest kingdom starts to vanish and the only primates left nearby are us? That's where the story gets a lot more uncomfortable. And here's the twist. For most of human history, this forest dragon was basically a rumor with feathers. Early European naturalists in the 1700s and 1800s didn't meet the harpy eagle soaring over some jungle river. They met it on a table. Imagine unpacking a shipping crate from the New World and finding a pair of wings as wide as you are tall, talons like daggers, and no idea how this creature actually lived. You'd think a predator that dramatic would have come with an instruction manual. Those first scientific descriptions? They were written from dried skins, loose feathers, and glassy-eyed taxidermy mounts dragged out of remote forests by explorers and traders. No slow-motion kill shots. No nest footage. Just a dead bird and a lot of guesswork. People argued about what it ate, how it hunted, even where it really belonged on the map, because almost nobody had seen one alive in the wild. And the few early records we do have are kind of grim. Harpies shot by hunters who were aiming at monkeys and got this thing instead. Birds found dead near new logging camps, probably after losing their nest tree. Individuals captured by locals, tied up near villages as curiosities or as living scarecrows. Believe it or not, most of what science knew about one of the deadliest aerial predators on Earth came from accidents, bycatch, and bodies, not from watching it actually be a predator. Fast forward to now, and you might expect that modern biologists are tripping over harpies. Better binoculars, drones, GPS, the whole gadget backpack, right? Nope. Even today, researchers can spend months in prime harpy territory and never see one. You hear monkeys alarm calling, you find plucked feathers under a giant tree, you maybe glimpse a shadow, but a clear, in-person view of a wild adult. That's a career moment. We've had to cheat. Camera traps on ridgelines, nest cams 100 feet up in kapok trees, GPS tags on the rare bird that actually lets itself be caught. Those silent lenses have shown us more hunting, feeding, and parenting than generations of field biologists staring into the canopy ever did. In a weird way, the cameras know the harpy better than we do. And while we're finally getting better footage, we're losing actual eagles. In parts of Central America, harpies have been wiped out locally. Some countries have last recorded individual dates from decades ago, a single bird shot or seen once and then never again. As forests shrink into cattle pastures and soy fields, the overlap between humans and harpies is getting rarer, not more common, which makes the few meetings we do have even more revealing. When a harpy turns up near people, it's usually perched above a village ignoring everyone, defending a nest tree when climbers get too close, or grabbing a chicken like it's a slightly embarrassing downgrade from a monkey. What if I told you that in centuries of fearful folklore, we still don't have a single verified case of a harpy hunting a human as prey? So if this ghost of the canopy isn't stalking us, what happens on the rare day we finally stumble into its world and it decides we're a problem anyway? Imagine you're that harpy, sitting 40 meters up in a kapok tree, king of this green cathedral, and suddenly, here comes this neon-helmeted primate, clanking metal and yelling to his friend about the GoPro angle. That's what most harpy meets human moments actually look like. Field researchers who climb to nests will tell you the same story again and again. The adult doesn't silently swoop in like a horror movie. It screams. It bluff charges. It rips branches off above their heads like it's throwing a tantrum with power tools. You'd think those talons would go straight for the face, right? Believe it or not, full contact strikes are incredibly rare and usually only happen when someone gets way too close to a chick or lingers up there like they're moving in. From the harpy's point of view, that makes sense. This is a bird built around a very specific hunting script. Most days, it's a statue on a high perch, just waiting. No soaring around, wasting fuel, no dramatic chases. When a monkey, sloth, or other mid-sized animal moves through the right branch at the wrong time, the harpy explodes off the perch, covers a short distance in a blur, and hits it like a falling cinder block with knives. One grab, one crush. Then it's back to a hidden feeding tree where it can tear the prey apart in peace. Notice the pattern here: ambush, surprise, control. The targets are all roughly the same size and shape, moving in predictable ways, and they live in the canopy where the harpy's wings and body are perfectly tuned to weave between branches. That's its practiced kill pattern, the one evolution has been rehearsing for millions of years. Now drop a human into that script. We walk upright. We're heavy. We're mostly on the ground or crashing through vegetation like a busted shopping cart. We smell like sweat, bug spray, plastic, and instant noodles. Often we show up in noisy groups with bright colors and metal tools. From a harpy's perspective, this is not a stealthy monkey snack. This is a weird, unpredictable, possibly dangerous problem. Here's the wild part. We still don't really know what the harpy thinks when it sees us. How does it calculate risk? Is it looking at our shape, our movement, the sounds we make? Has it learned over generations that humans mean guns, habitat loss, and vanished prey? So the safest move is to scream, posture, and not actually commit? Or is it mostly instinct, with a rough size limit that just shoves us into the too big, not worth it category? What if I told you that for all our cameras and GPS tags, those split-second decisions are still a black box to science. We can measure what they eat. We can log when they flush from a nest. But the exact moment a harpy decides, nope, not attacking that one, is still guesswork. And yet, this is a raptor with a primate-killing toolkit that flat-out refuses to add us to the menu. So if the Amazon's apex eagle won't cross that line, what about the African eagle some people whisper actually might have, back when our ancestors were a lot smaller and a lot more vulnerable? What if I told you there's an eagle in Africa that didn't just scare our ancestors? It may have actually eaten them. Not in a movie, in real life. In the same forests where early hominins were learning to walk upright, something was watching from the canopy, waiting for one of them to make a mistake. Imagine a hot afternoon on the edge of an African forest. The air is still, insects buzzing, a few monkeys arguing in the trees like they always do. Then a shadow glides over the leaves, long legs dangling, wings barely moving. It looks almost lazy. And then, in a split second, those legs fold, the wings tuck, and the whole bird turns into a falling spear that slams into an unsuspecting monkey with bone-cracking force. That's the crowned eagle. Often called Africa's most powerful forest eagle, this is not your average bird-watching moment. This creature can kill prey heavier than itself, hauling up monkeys, small antelope, even young pigs, with talons built like meat hooks. You'd think a bird that size would struggle to be sneaky, right? Believe it or not, in the dappled light of the forest, it's almost invisible until it hits. And here's where it gets uncomfortably close to home. In South Africa, archaeologists found an ancient child's skull with 2 neat punctures in the top, spaced just like crowned eagle talons. The damage matches how these eagles grab monkeys by the head. A lot of scientists now think an eagle, not a big cat, killed that child. Yeah, you heard me right. One of the top suspects in an early hominin murder case is a bird. To our small, tree-climbing relatives, this would have been the sky leopard, a silent, falling death that could snatch your sibling from a branch and be gone before you even processed the scream. No rustle of grass like a lion, no snapping twig like a leopard, just a rush of air, a thud, and blood dripping from the canopy. How's that for an evolutionary nightmare? And crowned eagles don't just stick to monkeys. They are one of the few birds seriously suspected of occasionally targeting human children today, especially in rural areas where kids wander near forest edges. Most of the stories are rare and hard to prove, but when you look at what they do to a 10-kilogram monkey, you suddenly understand why parents in some villages still glance up when they hear wings. But here's the twist. For all that horror movie energy, crowned eagles themselves are starting to vanish. Logging, expanding cities, and people shooting them to protect livestock are pushing them out of huge parts of their range. In some regions, they're now rare ghosts in forests they once ruled. So we've got this animal that may have shaped our deepest fears of the sky. And now its survival depends on us. Predator and prey? Not really. The real story between humans and this eagle is way messier, and it raises a much bigger question. If we finally outgrew being hunted from above, why are we so quick to erase the hunters? So let's zoom in from that big, messy story to the people actually living under the crowned eagle's shadow. In forest villages across East and Central Africa, you'll hear the same kind of story told 3 different ways. A kid walking a path, a sudden rush of wind, a blur of wings skimming so low the air itself feels like it claws your skin. Sometimes it's a child, sometimes it's a baby goat or a dog, but the punchline is always the same. The sky leopard came hunting. You'd think these are just campfire horror stories, right? Except the goats really do vanish. Poachers talk about eagles lifting small antelope clean off the forest floor. Parents point to a clearing and say, "That's where it tried to take my nephew." Are some of these tales stretched? For sure. But they're wrapped around a real animal that absolutely can kill something the size of a human toddler. And when people describe what they saw, it sounds almost unreal. They talk about a bird with leopard spots on its chest, a crest like a crown that flares when it turns its head, and wings so broad they feel like they blot out the canopy. Imagine looking up and seeing a patterned belly and hooked talons framed against a tiny hole of sky, the whole thing silent until it's already past you. Locals call it a leopard bird for a reason. That mottled pattern is pure camouflage in dappled forest light, and in a fast dive, it just becomes this streak of shadow and feathers. Believe it or not, a lot of witnesses never even see the full bird. They remember a tail band, the sound of air tearing, and the scream of whatever it hit. Now, here's where the myth steps out of campfire smoke and into a lab. In South Africa, scientists found the 2.5 million-year-old skull of an Australopithecus child, probably about 3 years old. On the top of that tiny skull, 2 neat puncture marks, plus a pattern of scratches and peeling bone that looked eerily familiar. What if I told you it matched crowned eagle kills almost perfectly? Researchers compared the spacing of those punctures to modern eagle talons, then looked at how monkey skulls break when eagles attack from above and start feeding on the face and eyes. Same kind of damage, same angles, same brutal efficiency. Not everyone agrees, but the argument is simple. At least some early hominins were on the menu. Fast forward to now, and we finally have numbers instead of just stories. When biologists climb to nests or check stomach contents, they find monkey bones, duiker hooves, bits of small antelope, over and over again. Human remains? Almost never. There are scattered reports of injured kids, torn scalps, nasty cuts, but confirmed cases of actual predation are vanishingly rare. So this apex predator that once may have snatched our ancestors mostly flies right past us today. The question is, did the eagle change? Or did we? And the answer starts with something a lot less dramatic than talons: math. And the math, for a crowned eagle, is brutal. Every hunt is a high-risk, high-energy gamble, and this bird has evolved to play a very specific game. Imagine you're a crowned eagle in a dense African forest. You're not soaring around like a movie eagle. You're sitting motionless on a concealed perch, half shadow, half leaves, just waiting. Then a monkey or a small antelope steps into a gap in the canopy, and you explode off the branch, thread your way through branches at highway speed, and slam into it from behind. One hit. Neck broken. Hunt over. That whole strategy is built around prey that fits the template: arboreal, distracted, and just the right size. Monkeys, duikers, small antelope. You'd think with talons that can punch through a primate's skull, a human kid wouldn't be that different, right? But the eagle's calculator is ruthless. Wrong angle, wrong habitat, wrong payoff. When we do see aggression, it usually looks very different from hunting. Field biologists who climb to check nests describe the same thing over and over: a sudden rush of wings, a shadow from above, and then a hard thump on the helmet or backpack. Talons raking at heads and shoulders, sometimes drawing blood, always terrifying. But the second they back away from the nest tree, the attacks stop. No stalking, no follow-up, no attempt to drag anyone off. That's territorial defense, not a dinner plan. And size really matters here. A crowned eagle could absolutely injure, maybe even kill, a small child under the right or wrong conditions. No question. But an adult human is a terrible target. We're heavy, we stand upright, we have hands, sticks, rocks, and friends who yell. An adult can grab, swing, and fight back. For a bird that relies on surprise and a clean kill from behind, that's like trading your usual easy snacks for a knife fight with something that might break your wing. One bad kick, one broken bone, and the eagle starves. Believe it or not, even scientists still don't fully know how often crowned eagles even try for human children. Confirmed, well-documented cases are extremely rare, and they're messy. In the same forests, you've got leopards, big snakes, even feral dogs. So when a child disappears or is found injured, it's really hard to say, with evidence, yes, this was an eagle, and not some other predator. So we're left with this weird contrast. The raptor that shows up most in our evolutionary horror stories mostly avoids us in real life. How's that for anticlimax? Which raises the next question. If the forest specialist is this cautious, what about the open country raptor people swear can lift goats, and sometimes lines up straight on hikers' heads? So let's step out of the forest and onto a cliff edge. Imagine standing on a knife-thin ridge, wind howling, snow blowing sideways, when a dark shape locks into the sky above you. Broad wings, golden nape, a golden eagle riding an updraft like it owns the weather. It hangs there for a second. Then it folds its wings and just drops. A missile with feathers. It slams into a mountain goat clinging to the rocks, and suddenly both bodies are cartwheeling down the cliff face, bouncing off ledges, disappearing into the white. You'd think that has to be CGI, right? Nope. That's a very real hunting strategy. These are the cliff assassins of the raptor world. Videos from Central Asia show golden eagles knocking wild goats and even small deer off balance, sending them tumbling to their deaths, then gliding down to feed. It looks brutal. It is brutal. And the internet did what the internet does, turned a rare behavior into a legend. You've probably seen those viral clips. An eagle apparently lifting a goat straight off the ground, or dragging a young deer across the snow like it's a stuffed toy. Add in old ranch stories about lambs vanishing, and that one post about an eagle trying to carry off someone's dog, and suddenly the narrative writes itself. If it can take a goat, you'd think it could take us, no problem. But here's the thing. Believe it or not, golden eagles are strong and limited at the same time. An adult might weigh 4 to 6 kilos, and in flight, it can realistically carry maybe a third of that as dead weight. That's rabbit, fox, maybe a very small lamb, not a 70-kilo human, not even close. The lifting goats shots? Most of the time you're seeing a bird yanking, tripping, or dragging an animal it could never actually fly away with. What they are absolute experts at is using gravity. Knock something just big enough off balance, let physics do the dirty work, then glide down to a broken, stunned, or dead animal that can't fight back. It's smart, it's energy efficient, and it massively cuts the risk of a kick or horn shattering a wing. One bad fracture and an eagle is finished. And golden eagles don't do this in some remote fantasy world. Their range stretches across huge chunks of North America, Europe, and Asia. They nest on cliffs above ranches, cruise over highways, and thread between new wind turbines like they're just more weird trees humans planted. We share open country with them, way more than we do with those deep forest specialists. So now the tension really spikes. You've got a raptor that can kill animals larger than itself, lives right next to us, and clearly has no problem being bold. What if I told you that confirmed predatory attacks on humans are still almost non-existent? When golden eagles dive toward people, what are they actually doing? And what happens when we finally push one too far? When those dives finally cross the line, they almost always go for the same place: your head. You'd think that means apex predator decides your lunch, right? Not quite. Imagine you're hiking a narrow ridge in the Rockies, wind in your ears, drop on both sides. You're feeling very main character. Then a dark shape explodes over the cliff, slices the air, and passes so close above you that you hear feathers hiss. Climbers report golden eagles coming within inches of their helmets, the bird shadow swallowing them for a split second before it banks away. No grab, no second pass, just a shockingly precise flyby that feels like a warning shot. Cyclists get it too. You're grinding up some lonely mountain road, head down, when, wham, something slams your helmet hard enough to rattle your teeth. Riders have come back with talon grooves carved into plastic, vents cracked, GoPro footage showing a golden eagle flaring at the last second and smacking the top of the head, then peeling off. Minor cuts, bruises, maybe a bloody ear if you're unlucky, but the bird doesn't circle like it just found a snack. It's already gone. So what's actually happening? Nest defense. During breeding season, golden eagles treat the space around their cliff or tall tree like an invisible force field. You, trudging up toward that perfect viewpoint, look less like a harmless hiker and more like a giant, clumsy predator wandering straight toward the nursery. First, you get warning passes. High, loud, a bit theatrical. If you don't get the hint and keep closing the distance, those passes tighten. Lower, faster, and, in rare cases, they escalate into physical contact with the safest target they can hit and still escape: the top of your head. Believe it or not, this pattern holds even in the scariest sounding stories. There are scattered reports from the 19th and early 20th centuries of golden eagles carrying off children. They show up in newspapers, hunting memoirs, and local legends. But when you look for hard evidence, bones in nests, verified injuries, anything forensic, it's basically vapor. What we do see is how those tales grow in the retelling. A bird swoops at a child on a hillside. The kid falls, gets hurt, and by the time it's told in the next village, the eagle is a baby-stealing monster. Modern data paints a way less cinematic picture. In virtually all well-documented cases, once the person backs away from the nest area or just leaves the cliff, the eagle breaks off instantly. No pursuit down the trail, no attempt to pin, no return strike the way they'd handle a hare or a young goat. The behavior screams, drive you out, not take you down. So to a golden eagle, you're not prey. You're competition. A big, weird, upright animal that might raid the nest. And that flips the whole script on those terrifying dive bomb encounters. But if we're not on the menu, why did eagles evolve all this firepower in the first place? And what kind of creature were they really built to kill? They evolved all that firepower for a reason. But it wasn't us. Imagine you're a big raptor looking down at the world with what is basically a built-in cost-benefit calculator. Every moving creature on the ground pops up as a little equation. Size, speed, claws or horns. How much meat? How likely it is to kick your skull in? One dive, one decision. Worth it. Or walk away. That calculator isn't conscious math, obviously, but it's real. A broken toe, a cracked wing, even a handful of ripped feathers can turn a top predator into a starving one. Raptors live on a knife edge of energy. They burn a ton of calories just staying airborne, so every hunt has to pay off without sending them to the emergency room of the forest. And humans? We score terribly on that test. We're big. We stand upright. Our eyes face forward like another predator's. We have those weird grasping hands that can grab, swing, and throw. You'd think we look slow and clumsy compared to a goat, but from an eagle's point of view, we're unpredictable, and we almost never run in a straight line. Plus, we accessorize. Sticks, trekking poles, backpacks, umbrellas, rifles, cameras on tripods. To a risk-averse hunter, that's a lot of sharp, stick-shaped question marks. One person is sketchy. A group of hikers with metal poles? That's basically a porcupine with legs. Now compare that to the usual menu. Goats on a cliff, rabbits in a field, ground squirrels, small deer. These animals bolt when attacked. They don't turn around and start coordinating a counterattack. They can't throw rocks, they don't have projectile weapons, and they rarely work together the way a bunch of angry humans will when something swoops their kid. Much safer bets, same calories, way less drama. Believe it or not, even the monsters of the raptor world play it safe. Harpy eagles have talons longer than a grizzly bear's claws, but they still focus on monkeys and sloths. Crowned eagles in Africa can injure children, and there are a few spooky skulls from prehistory that might be from eagle strikes. But when scientists open up their stomachs, it's primates and antelope, not people. And then there's learning. In places where eagles have been shot at, poisoned, or harassed, they don't just avoid that one farmer. They start treating the whole shape of human as lethal. One bad encounter, and your species gets filed under Do Not Touch in that mental calculator. Raptors that don't learn that lesson don't stick around long. What if I told you this same risk-reward logic is running in the brain of another aerial assassin that lives right above our cities? One that dives faster than any animal on Earth, threading between skyscrapers at 300 kilometers per hour, and still chooses to miss us on purpose. And to see it, you don't have to trek into some remote jungle or hang off a cliff with a spotting scope. You just have to look up on your way to work. Imagine this. We've been talking about giant forest eagles and mountain ghosts, birds that live where the air is thin and the trees never see a chainsaw. Huge, rare creatures that feel a world away from your daily life. But now I want you to picture something way more familiar. Traffic, sirens, glass towers, that one coffee shop you always swear you're going to quit. Because the deadliest sky hunters? A lot of them moved in upstairs, perched on ledges above office windows, tucked into the corners of stadium lights, nesting on old church steeples and highway bridges, are peregrine falcons. Smaller, sleeker, built for speed instead of brute strength. This isn't the heavyweight boxer of the bird world. This is the guided missile. You'd think losing the giant claws and the massive body would make them less scary. Believe it or not, it makes them worse, at least if you're a pigeon. A peregrine can fold its wings, tuck into a teardrop, and hit 300 kilometers per hour in a dive. One strike, mid-air decapitation. The other bird never even knows what happened. Now shift the camera. Street level. People on lunch break, scrolling on their phones, arguing over where to eat. Above them, 40 stories up, a falcon slips off a skyscraper ledge, slices through the air, and rockets down the side of the building. It blows past open windows, past a guy cleaning glass, past a group of tourists taking selfies, and slams into a pigeon in an explosion of feathers, maybe 10 meters over someone's head. And that person just keeps walking. Yeah, you heard me right. A 300-kilometer-per-hour animal missile just threaded a concrete canyon, and the only thing anyone notices is a couple of feathers drifting onto the sidewalk. This is happening in cities all over the world. New York, London, Tokyo, tiny towns with one tall bridge. We turned cliffs into skyscrapers, and the falcons said, "Cool, thanks for the upgrade." So here's the weird part. If any raptor is close enough and fast enough to hit us by accident, or even out of curiosity, it's this one. They share our airspace, our buildings, our rush hour. They have the speed to break bone, the talons to puncture a skull. Yet they almost never touch us. Why? Why does a predator that can knock another bird out of existence in a single hit, that lives literally above our heads, just ignore the giant slow primates underneath? That's the new mystery. We've left the wild mountains behind. We're in the city now, where the skyline is a hunting ground, the office tower is a cliff, and the world's fastest animal is learning to live with us. Speaking of, let's get back to it. Because to understand why they don't see us as food, we have to step inside the falcon's split-second decision-making mid-dive. Imagine standing on a rooftop bar, drink in hand, and the deadliest missile in the sky blasts past your face at freeway speed and completely ignores you. That's a peregrine falcon in the city. To it, your skyscraper is just a cliff someone forgot to finish carving. Up here, the urban jungle is actually perfect falcon country. Those narrow gaps between office towers? They act like man-made canyons, funneling wind into clean updrafts that help these birds gain height without burning much energy. Window ledges and balcony rails become nesting ledges. Steel and glass give them the same commanding views they used to get from sea cliffs and mountain walls, just with worse parking. And the food? It's ridiculous. Look up in any big city and you'll see it. Endless flocks of pigeons, starlings, and feral doves swirling around like a flying buffet. You'd think the smartest predator in the sky would be nervous hunting right above traffic lights and office windows. But this is easy mode. Pigeons are slower, less agile, and completely distracted by, well, pigeon things. Now, watch how the body matches the job. Peregrines are built like guided bullets. Narrow, swept-back wings, a compact, teardrop-shaped body, and a short, stiff tail that works like a tiny rudder. When they fold those wings and drop into a hunting dive, or stoop, they can hit over 300 kilometers an hour. Yeah, you heard me right. This is the fastest animal on Earth, beating every shark, cheetah, and race car you've ever seen on a nature show. Taxonomically, they're not just tiny eagles. Falcons sit in their own family, Falconidae, separate from eagles and hawks, which are in Accipitridae. Different evolutionary branches, same job description. Catch other animals out of the sky before those animals even realize they're on the menu. It's like evolution ran the predator hiring process twice and picked two different designs for top aerial hitman. Up close, they're surprisingly stylish for something that murders things at Mach-ish speeds. Slate blue back, pale chest barred with dark stripes, and that signature dark mustache mark under each eye that makes them look permanently locked in. Inside the beak, there's a special little notch, a built-in spike that lets them shear the neck vertebrae of their prey mid-air. It's brutal, fast, and for the pigeon, very final. But here's the part that really messes with your brain. These birds will dive within a few meters of office workers pressed against glass, streak past rooftop patios, even buzz tourist observation decks. They thread the gap between buildings like a thrown knife and never peel off toward the humans watching. We're right there, big, slow, and kind of clueless. Yet in that split second, the falcon's brain is locked onto one thing, a compact, bird-shaped target it evolved to handle safely. What if I told you that, from the falcon's point of view, we're not just unappetizing, we're actually a terrible business decision? To see why, we have to zoom out from the city skyline and look at what raptors can physically risk when they choose a target. From the falcon's perspective, every hunt is a math problem with bones on the line. Imagine you're a peregrine, a missile with feathers. You climb and climb and climb, way above the city or the cliffs, until everything below turns into tiny moving dots. Then you pick one, not a person, a pigeon, a duck, a starling that zigged when it should have zagged. You lock on, fold your wings, and drop into a stoop. Now you're falling faster than a highway car, using gravity like a weapon, and the whole point is to hit once and be done. You don't wrestle. You don't grapple. You slam into that mid-sized bird with a closed foot like a hammer, snap the spine or knock it out of the air, and only then do you swing around to grab your very stunned dinner. You'd think such a deadly creature would look at us and go, "Wow, bigger meal." But that's not how the physics works. Peregrines are tuned to prey that's just the right size and shape, with flight patterns they can predict, and bodies they can break without shattering their own. Their ideal target is basically a flying loaf of bread with wings. Compact, not too heavy, not too bony, and definitely not punching back with fists. Now compare that to a human. We're huge, we're on the ground, and we're standing upright. For a stooping falcon, we're in the worst possible place and orientation. To hit us at full speed would be like you jumping headfirst into a parked car. Best case, the bird bounces off and flies away, dazed. Worst case, it breaks a wing and slowly starves. From an evolutionary business standpoint, that is a terrible investment. What do they actually do when they get close to us? In cities, people working on skyscrapers or bridge towers will sometimes get buzzed by peregrines if they wander too close to a nest. The falcon screams in, veers at the last second, maybe clips a hard hat, and peels away. It's a warning pass, the aerial version of "back off," not an audition for a new food source. Golden eagles, harpy eagles, they pull the same move over nests. Defend the kids, then go back to eating the usual menu. Believe it or not, scientists still don't fully know how peregrines visually file us in their brains. Are we just moving scenery? Big, unpredictable mammals to avoid? Whatever the category, it clearly isn't prey. In thousands of hours of observation, they show zero predatory interest in us. We don't match the size, we don't match the shape, and we definitely don't match the payoff. So if daylight skyrockets like this mostly ignore us, what happens when the hunters are silent, the world is dark, and the eyes watching you glow like headlights? Yeah, you heard me right. Some of those night raptors don't just buzz past joggers and campers. Sometimes they hit them. So picture this. You're jogging a dim forest trail at night, headlamp bobbing, breath loud in your own ears, when the world behind you suddenly explodes. Something heavy and solid slams into the back of your head. No warning, no wing beat, just impact. You stumble, swear, spin around with your light cutting through the trees, and there is nothing. Just drifting feathers, burning scalp, and 4 neat, stinging lines where talons raked your skin. Then the forest goes quiet again, like it never happened. That real-life horror movie jump scare? Believe it or not, one of the most likely culprits is not a bat, not some mystery monster, but a great horned owl. Yeah, you heard me right. The same hoo-hoo bird from kids' storybooks sometimes comes in like a flying cinder block with knives attached. Great horned owls are the night heavyweights of North America. Broad wings that can span over a meter, a chunky body that feels way more solid than you'd think, and talons that can crush down on prey with a grip strong enough to finish off rabbits, skunks, and even other raptors. Imagine a creature that looks like a feathered cat with murder mittens, patrolling the tree line while you're just trying to get your steps in. And they don't just pick off tiny mice. These animals routinely tackle prey almost as big as they are. Skunks, house cats, young raccoons, the occasional unlucky hawk that drifted too close to their territory. Under that soft "who" is an apex predator that does not mess around. Up close, they're even more intense. Those ear-like tufts that give them their horned name, the huge forward-facing eyes that stare straight into you, and that thick, barrel-chested body hunched over a branch like it owns the place. But the real superpower is in the feathers. Each one has soft, combed edges that shred the air instead of slicing it, turning what should be a loud wing beat into almost nothing. Silent. You don't hear them coming. You just feel the hit. So when one of these stealth bombers of the night sky nails a person in the dark, what's actually going on? Is that a hunting run gone wrong? A territorial strike? Or just a case of mistaken identity where your bouncing headlamp looks way too much like a rival or a threat near the nest? You'd think no self-respecting owl would confuse a sweaty jogger with a rabbit, but in low light and high adrenaline, mistakes happen. And that's the unnerving part. Out in the open daylight, raptors feel distant, almost abstract. At night on a narrow trail, with trees pressing in and your vision trapped in a little cone of LED light, it suddenly feels personal. Claustrophobic. Like the sky has come down to ground level and is brushing past your hair. What if I told you, though, that even these surprise impacts almost never mean you're on the menu, and that the real reason they hit us says more about nests, boundaries, and our expanding footprint than it does about some secret taste for humans? Out of all the night hunters we share space with, great horned owls are the ones most likely to actually touch you. Not because they've finally decided your dinner, but because of how they hunt and how badly our gear can fool them. Imagine you're a rabbit in the dark. The owl doesn't chase you like a cheetah. It waits. It perches silently on a branch, feathers puffed just enough to muffle every tiny movement, and it scans. Those huge eyes lock onto any flicker of motion, while its ears pick up the tiniest rustle, the faint scrape of claws on bark, the breathing of a small animal under snow. When something in that specific size and sound range twitches, the owl drops. No warning, no wing beat, just a glide and a grab. That system is amazing for small to medium mammals, mice, rats, rabbits, even skunks. You'd think such a deadly package would be smart enough to tell the difference between a squirrel and your beanie. But here's the catch. At night, the brain is running on patterns, not perfect detail. A bouncing pom-pom on a hat, a swinging ponytail, the stuttering beam of a headlamp moving along a log. In low light, that can look exactly like a small animal sitting on top of a larger, harmless shape. So the owl does what it always does. It commits. It launches, lines up the prey, and hits it with those talons. And then, instantly, it realizes, nope, wrong file. This isn't a rabbit. This is a yelling, flailing, very not edible primate. Most people who've been struck describe exactly that. One fast impact to the head or hat, maybe a scratch, and the owl is already peeling away into the dark. No circling back, no second dive, no attempt to drag or start feeding, which is what you'd expect in a real hunt. Now add nests to the mix, and it gets even spicier. During breeding season, great horned owls turn into tiny feathered bouncers. If you unknowingly walk under a nest tree, especially at dusk, the adults see you as a climbing predator headed straight for their chicks. In that context, your head is just the highest, most obvious target. So they dive bomb the top of you, hit once, maybe twice, and then retreat to a branch to keep screaming at you until you leave. It's defense, not dinner. Believe it or not, In the documented cases we have, that pattern is incredibly consistent. Brief strike, no follow-up, no feeding. In the confusing, grainy world of night vision, we are not on the menu. In an owl's mental map, we're a dangerous obstacle, a possible nest raider, or an occasional optical illusion caused by our weird human fashion choices. And if that's how a serious predator treats us by accident, wait until you see what the truly giant raptors do when they size us up on purpose. And if that's how a serious predator treats us by accident, wait until you see what the truly giant raptors do when they size us up on purpose. But guys, before we let a harpy eagle stare directly into your soul, can we just admit something? Thinking about a bird with grizzly bear talons dropping out of the sky onto your head is a lot. You'd think walking through the forest suddenly feels like walking through a sniper range with feathers. Now, imagine being out there all day, actually trying to film these things. One of my last field days with eagles started at 4 a.m. It was cold, pitch black, and that kind of damp where the air feels like it's already rained on you. We hiked 3 hours to a cliff overlook, cameras on our backs, tripods digging into our shoulders, just to sit and wait for a silhouette that might be a rare raptor, or might be a plastic bag. By noon, it went from freezing to, why is the sun personally attacking me? And by the time we headed back, a storm rolled in sideways. Out there, miles from the trailhead, you really just can't have gear that taps out before you do. That's where today's sponsor, Ridge Trail Pro, actually matters for me. This isn't some random thing I leave in a drawer. Their rugged GPS watch is basically my field buddy that doesn't complain, doesn't get tired, and definitely doesn't eat all the snacks. Believe it or not, half the raptor footage in this video exists because I trusted that watch. It's fully waterproof, so when the sky opened up and turned the path into a small river, I was soaked. The owl was offended, but the watch kept tracking. It's got crazy long battery life, so when golden eagles decided to show up 3 hours after sunset, I still had GPS, elevation, and a backtrack route instead of, I think the car is that way? How's that for not becoming the lost mammal on the mountain? It's lightweight, which sounds small, but after 10 hours of climbing while you're staring up for a shadow that might be an eagle and trying not to trip over roots, every gram counts. Heart rate, sunrise alerts, storm warnings, all on your wrist so you can time those dawn flights without guessing. Guys, one of the absolute best things you can do if you're out where real predators live is remove as many dumb human mistakes as possible. If you want to check it out, Ridge Trail Pro gave us a link in the description and a discount code. Raptor for 20% off, limited time. Use it, save some money, and maybe don't get stuck on a cliff after dark. Because what if I told you raptors won't hunt you? But the cold, the rain, and getting lost absolutely will. So gear up for the elements, not the eagle. Speaking of, let's get back to it, because the next bird we're about to meet could kill a monkey in seconds and still decides to fly right past us. This bird could snap a monkey's spine in a heartbeat. But what if I told you the real super predator in this story is us? We've spent this whole episode asking why raptors don't hunt humans. Wrong question. The uncomfortable truth is that, for centuries, we've been the ones relentlessly hunting them, chasing them, and reshaping their world with almost casual violence. You'd think the creature with the talons is the scary one. Nope. It's the one with the bulldozer. Imagine lining up every confirmed case of a raptor killing a human in all of recorded history. A few tragic attacks, a handful of old stories, some probably exaggerated legends. Now stack that against what we do every single year. Habitat cleared, forests logged, cliffs blasted, wetlands drained, whole hunting grounds erased not in generations, but in months. And that's just the background damage. On top of that, we poison them. Vultures in Africa and Asia drop dead by the hundreds at a single carcass because someone laced it with toxins to kill problem predators or hide poaching. Believe it or not, one poisoned cow can wipe out an entire local population of these cleanup crews in the sky. Then there's the deliberate shooting. Eagles labeled as livestock killers get picked off over fields and mountains, even when most of them never touched a sheep in their life. Falcons, hawks, and owls are hit by cars along highways in staggering numbers as they dive for mice in the grass verge. Others are electrocuted on power lines that, from a bird's eye view, look like the perfect perch, and not, a death trap. Here's the asymmetry that really hurts. A single human with a rifle can kill more raptors in an afternoon than all the raptors on Earth will kill humans in a decade. Scale that up to a construction crew with heavy machinery, or a plane spraying pesticides across thousands of acres, and you start to see how wildly lopsided this relationship is. How's that for a plot twist? We worry about a hawk scratching us on a hike, while glass skyscrapers silently take out migrating birds by the thousands. We panic about an owl swooping at a jogger, while our cars, our wires, our chemicals turn the sky into an obstacle course that no animal evolved to survive. So here's the real mystery. If we're so dangerous to them, why haven't they all just left? Why do peregrine falcons nest on our office towers? Why do barn owls hunt over our fields? Why do red tails circle our suburbs like it's totally normal? Are they adapting to us or trapped with us? In the next part, we're going to follow those city raptors into our concrete jungles and ask a tougher question. When wild hunters move into our world, are we saving them or slowly killing them in a different way? So here's the twist. While we're busy asking whether these sky hunters are getting used to us, the real story is that we're quietly erasing them. Imagine a world where the only raptors you ever see are on old nature documentaries or sports logos. That's not sci-fi. That's the path we're on. Let's start with the most basic thing a raptor needs: somewhere to live and raise a chick that wants to murder everything. Habitat. When we clear Amazon rainforest, we're not just losing trees. We're taking away the exact giant emergent trees harpy eagles need to nest, sometimes the only suitable one for miles. In Africa, crowned eagles lose their towering forest perches as logging and charcoal production chew through old growth. Out on the open plains, agricultural expansion just flattens everything. Fields replace the rough grass and scattered trees that hawks and kites use as hunting perches, so the landscape looks neat to us and like a food desert to them. Then comes urban sprawl. Roads, suburbs, shopping centers, all slicing once continuous territories into tiny fragments. You'd think a bird that can fly could just hop over a highway and be fine, right? Believe it or not, many raptors are surprisingly loyal to specific valleys, ridgelines, and wind patterns. Break those up, and hunting suddenly costs more energy than it brings in. And even when we leave some habitat, we lace it with poison. Those rat poisons under your shed? They don't stop with rats. A poisoned mouse staggers out, an owl nails it, and the toxin just moves up the food chain. Hawks and barn owls all over the world are dying secondhand from rodenticides we barely think about. Scavengers get hit from another angle. Hunters leave gut piles or wounded animals full of lead shot, and eagles and vultures come in to clean up. One meal, and microscopic bits of metal start shredding their nervous systems from the inside. How's that for a thank you for free pest control? We've done this before on an even bigger scale. DDT sounded like a miracle pesticide after World War II, right up until it thinned eggshells so badly peregrine falcons' eggs crushed under their own parents. By the 1960s and 70s, peregrines vanished from huge parts of North America and Europe. We almost deleted one of the fastest animals on Earth without ever seeing it dive. And then there's the stuff that isn't an accident at all. Direct persecution. In ranching country, big eagles still get shot off fence posts because someone thinks they're shopping for lamb. Studies of golden eagles and crowned eagles show most of their diet is wild prey, or rodents that actually help farmers. But the myth of the livestock killer is stubborn. It's easier to grab a rifle than to read a stomach contents report. The numbers are brutal. The Philippine eagle, this massive forest hunter that could absolutely injure a person if it wanted to, is down to maybe a few hundred breeding pairs. Some harpy eagle populations are in the same range. These birds are now statistically closer to extinction than to any realistic threat to humans. Yeah, you heard me right. The deadliest claws in the canopy are hanging on by a thread. So the real question isn't, will they start hunting us one day? It's, will they even be here in 50 years if we don't change how we share the sky? And here's where it gets uncomfortable. Because the same cities that poison and fragment their world might also be the only places left where they can survive with us, if we let them. In the next part, we're going to see what happens when a top predator moves into our neighborhoods and starts hunting right over our heads. So picture this, a crowned eagle that can knock a monkey out of a tree in one hit, gliding right over a playground and not even flinching. You'd think we'd be the ultimate prize, right? Big, meaty, everywhere. But evolution looked at us and basically said, yeah, hard pass. To see why, you have to rewind the clock. By the time humans and really large raptors were sharing the same forests and cliffs in a big way, we weren't helpless primates anymore. We had fire. We had sharp stone tools. We had groups that watched each other's backs and brains that could plan an ambush. Imagine you're an eagle. Are you going to experiment on the weird ape that carries sticks that turn into flying death? Or just grab another monkey that never invented spears? Raptors that survived into the modern world did it by specializing. They tuned their bodies and behavior to very specific targets. Harpy eagles lock onto monkeys and sloths. Ospreys are basically fish missiles. Golden eagles go for marmots, hares, and the occasional unlucky goat. That focuses everything. It means predictable calories, predictable escapes, and way fewer nasty surprises. Now compare that to us. We walk upright, we face forward, and we stare back. That alone is unsettling to a predator. It means you've probably seen them before they've fully committed. On top of that, we throw things, we shout, we gather in groups, and, believe it or not, we remember. An eagle that swoops at a human isn't just risking a scratch, it's risking a rock to the wing, a broken bone, or a whole village deciding this bird-shaped missile needs to disappear. And in nature, one bad decision can end your genetic line. Any eagle or owl that tried to make humans a regular menu item likely got removed from the gene pool pretty fast. No offspring, no humans are tasty, hunting tradition. The survivors were the ones that stuck to prey, that kicks less, stabs less, and doesn't invent metal. Then we did something wild. As we spread farms and cities, we accidentally created a buffet. Grain fields pumped up rodent numbers. Landfills and parks exploded with pigeons, starlings and gulls, chickens, rabbits, small livestock. It was like we put up an all-you-can-eat sign for anything with talons. Why gamble on a dangerous, unpredictable ape when there are 10 clueless pigeons sitting on a power line? So evolution never bothered to turn sky predators into human specialists because it didn't need to. Everything about us screamed risk, and everything around us screamed easier options. How's that for a plot twist? The deadliest hunters in the sky had the tools to take us, but the smart move was to fly right past. And yet, even as they avoid eating us, some of them are learning to live closer and closer to us. In the next part, we're going to see what happens when those talons move into the city and start hunting in our daily lives without us even noticing. We've been flying backward this whole time, millions of years into the past, ancient skies, ancient hunters, ancient rules. Now I want you to imagine we slam on the brakes, snap back to the present, and then hit fast forward. Because the world raptors evolved for is not the world they're stuck with anymore. The new super predator isn't an eagle. It's the city. Skyscrapers, stadium lights, endless traffic, and a buffet of trash-eating animals. You'd think all this concrete would scare off a wild hunter, right? Believe it or not, a lot of them are moving in. To a peregrine falcon, a glass tower is just a 200-meter cliff with central heating and great pigeon views. Urbanization has become this weird, man-made evolutionary force. We've built artificial cliffs, permanent heat islands, and packed them with prey. Pigeons, starlings, rats, squirrels, even your neighbor's poorly supervised koi pond. Some hawks now hunt over highways, timing dives between cars. Owls learn to nest on billboards and under bridges. These creatures are supposed to be symbols of wilderness, and suddenly they're commuting with you on your morning drive. So what happens when the deadliest hunters in the sky start treating downtown like a forest? For one thing, they see us a lot more. They're watching from lampposts, power lines, stadium roofs. They learn our patterns. When parks fill with joggers, when schoolyards explode with kids, when dogs flood the sidewalks. The question is, as they decode our routines, does their behavior toward us change? Now add climate change to the mix, and the pattern gets even messier. Prey animals are shifting their ranges, some moving north, some climbing higher, some just vanishing as habitats dry out or flood. Migration routes that worked for thousands of years suddenly run into heat waves, droughts, and storms big enough to knock birds out of the sky. Raptors either adapt or they move, and a lot of the only good habitat left is wrapped around human cities and farms. What if I told you some species are already showing up in places field guides never expected? Warmer winters let them overwinter near landfills. Drought pushes them toward irrigated fields and suburban lawns where sprinklers keep prey alive. It's not that they love us. It's that we've accidentally turned our world into the last semi-reliable hunting ground. Here's the uncomfortable twist. As they learn to dodge our cars, thread through our buildings, and hunt under our light pollution, they're also running constant experiments. What's safe to attack? What fights back? A toddler, a jogger, a cyclist with flailing arms and a metal frame under them. To a smart bird that survived by avoiding bad bets, we still look like trouble. But can this changing planet ever nudge a raptor into seriously seeing us as prey? Or are we locked into a different, much stranger relationship as the climate tilts and the cities spread? In the next part, we're going to zoom in on those encounters when talons, traffic, and people collide, and see just how close that line actually gets. And here's where it gets weird. Because if you want to see apex predators sharing space with us, you don't have to trek into some rare jungle. You just have to look up at a traffic light. Imagine a red-tailed hawk, fluffed against the wind, perched on a highway lamp as trucks roar underneath, hunting over 6 lanes of chaos like it's a grassland. You'd think that kind of front-row seat to human life might flip a switch. But watch what these birds actually do in cities. Kestrels hover over billboards, snatching insects and tiny rodents that live in the cracks of our parking lots. Peregrine falcons nest on office towers and stadium lights, using skyscrapers the way their ancestors used cliffs, then dive bomb through glass canyons to hammer pigeons mid-air at 200 miles an hour. Down at ground level, great horned owls and barred owls patrol city parks and golf courses, ghosting between trees just meters from joggers, dog walkers, and late-night teenagers who think they're alone. They aren't. Those yellow eyes see everything. And yet, night after night, it's rats, rabbits, and squirrels that disappear, not us. Urban raptors don't just tolerate the city. They read it. They learn traffic patterns, timing their low crossings between waves of cars like they're playing a real-life Frogger with wings. Some falcons have been filmed using streetlights and billboards as hunting lamps, waiting for moths and bats to swirl into the glow. Owls in busy parks shift their nesting schedules, laying eggs a little earlier or later so the noisiest human season doesn't line up with their most vulnerable chicks. Believe it or not, a lot of their day is basically people watching. They sit on those poles and rooftops and study us. They track when the dog walkers show up, which paths the kids use, when the construction crews fire up the jackhammers. But all that learning is about avoiding us, not targeting us. We are moving hazards on their mental map, like living traffic cones that sometimes throw snacks. Because from their point of view, the menu is already stacked. Cities are overflowing with pigeons, starlings, rats, and squirrels. Abundant, distracted, clustered around dumpsters and bird feeders, and crucially, they don't call animal control when you grab them. One good stoop from a peregrine, one silent glide from an owl, and dinner is handled with almost zero risk. What if I told you that increased familiarity usually makes these animals less likely to test us, not more? The closer they live to people, the more they learn exactly how dangerous we can be with cars, windows, wires, and, yeah, guns. We stay a high-risk, low-reward option, even when we're standing right under the nest. But sharing space this closely sets up something else. Collisions, nest raids, and those rare moments when a raptor actually does hit a human. In the next part, we're going to zoom in on those stories and ask, when it goes wrong, what's really happening in that split second of impact? So let's zoom in on those impacts, because when a raptor actually hits a person, it feels like a horror movie moment. But if you slow it down and strip away the headlines, almost every case falls into a few really boring, really non-killer categories. First up, nest defense dives. Imagine you're a jogger, you cut across a park, and suddenly a red-tailed hawk clips your head like a flying hammer. That's not a hunting strike. That's a parent saying, "Back away from the babies," in the only language a bird of prey has. Bird watchers, tree climbers, even professional researchers get this treatment. They step too close to a nest. The adult hawk or falcon stoops, rakes a hat, maybe draws a bit of blood, and then peels off the second you retreat. Then you've got mice identification hits. Owls are the champions here. Barred owls and great horned owls have nailed winter hats, ponytails, even headlamps, probably thinking they're small mammals scurrying along a trail. You'd think an animal with night vision goggles for eyes would know the difference, right? Nope. Believe it or not, there are multiple cases of joggers getting scratched on the scalp because an owl took a silent swing at a fuzzy beanie and realized way late it had just attacked polyester. Another big category is competition over prey. Hunters and falconers see this a lot. Someone shoots a rabbit or hooks a fish, and a hungry eagle or osprey tries to steal the prize. Historical reports of golden eagles attacking shepherds in Europe often read like this: the bird goes for a lamb, the human rushes in, and suddenly you've got talons, wool, and panic all mixed together. The injuries are real, but the motive is food theft, not man-eating monster. Which leaves the cases everyone whispers about: small children. There are scattered stories of crowned eagles in Africa injuring kids, and that famous video of a golden eagle lifting a toddler in a park went viral before it turned out to be a student animation. Even in the rare, ambiguous historical incidents where a child is scratched or briefly lifted, follow-up work on eagle stomach contents and nests shows monkeys, hyraxes, goats, not kids, no pattern, no ongoing behavior, just edge case mistakes in a world full of noise. And here's the wild part: there is no meaningful global database of fatal raptor attacks on humans. Not because scientists are lazy, but because the numbers are so close to zero, they live as individual anecdotes in local newspapers and old hunting journals. If this was a real trend, we'd have charts. We don't. We have campfire stories. Yet media loves a killer eagle headline. One scratch from an owl becomes "Town Under Siege." A hawk defending its nest turns into sky terror footage looped 1,000,000 times. What if I told you those viral clips almost always end the same way? The bird hits once, maybe twice, then breaks off the instant the threat backs down. No feeding, no caching, no return to the scene like they would with actual prey. So if the deadliest predators in the sky aren't trying to eat us, who are they really built for? In the next part, we're going to meet the animals that do end up on the menu, and why evolution drew the line just short of you. So here's the uncomfortable truth for our egos: the birds that can kill monkeys, goats, even small deer. Take one look at us and basically go, nope, not worth it. Why? Are we just too big, or are we actually too dangerous? Let's start with the physics, because the sky runs on math, not bravado. You'd think a giant eagle with a 2-meter wingspan could just swoop in and carry you off like a movie villain, right? Yeah, you heard me right. Most big eagles can only fly with about 1/3 of their own body weight. A heavy golden eagle might weigh 6 kilos. 1/3 of that is 2. That's a rabbit. Maybe a fox. Not a 30-kilo child, and definitely not you at adult size. So instead of grab and go, imagine what an actual attack on a human would look like. The bird hits hard, digs those talons in. And then what? It's stuck on the ground, welded to a panicking primate that's flailing, rolling, and screaming. That's not a clean kill. That's a wrestling match. And on the ground, the raptor's superpowers vanish fast. Those huge wings? Awkward. Hollow bones? Great for soaring, terrible for impact. A single bad kick, a wild swing, even you just falling on it can snap a wing or a leg. For a flying predator, a broken bone isn't a bad day. It's a death sentence by slow starvation. We, on the other hand, are built for exactly that kind of chaos. We kick, we punch, we grab. Even a small kid can clamp a bird's leg, shield their face, or just thrash around in ways that make those precise talon strikes miss their mark. Raptors are ambush specialists, not bar fight champions. So over millions of years, what do they learn? They generalize. A crowned eagle in Africa tries a young antelope, gets a face full of hooves. A harpy eagle hits a big monkey that bites back. A golden eagle misjudges a goat and ends up tumbling down a cliff. Every one of those moments is a data point. Large, strong mammals are risky. Anything that size or bigger, including this weird naked ape, goes into the mental folder labeled "Do not engage unless absolutely forced." And then you add the real wild card, our tools. Believe it or not, even without guns, we're terrifying. We throw rocks with shocking accuracy for an animal. We swing sticks. We shout in groups. One experimental dive at a shepherd, a hail of stones from angry humans, and the local eagle population has a brand new religion: avoid the bipeds. So it's not just that we're too big. We're loud, unpredictable, armed, and from a raptor's point of view, completely unnecessary. Why gamble your wings on a creature that fights like a cornered baboon when the forest is full of softer, quieter meals that don't throw things? And here's the twist. While they're busy avoiding us as prey, we've become something much worse to them. In the next part, we're going to flip the script and look at how the hunter in this story quietly turned into the real super predator in the sky, us. So let's actually hit pause on the birds for a second and talk about us, because this is where it gets weird. They're not hunting us, they're statistically harmless. And yet, the idea of something with talons circling above our heads? That hits a nerve way deeper than logic. Instead of asking, why don't raptors see us as food? Imagine flipping it. Why are we so obsessed with the thought of being grabbed from the sky in the first place? You'd think in a world of texting while driving and loose electrical wires, we'd be more scared of, realistic dangers. But no. Give us a shadow passing overhead, and suddenly we're starring in our own horror movie. Part of that is an evolutionary hangover. We come from primates that actually lived in trees, in forests, where being small and soft and snack-sized was a daily problem. Back then, an eagle or giant owl wasn't a cool bird-watching moment. It was a game-over screen. If you didn't notice the silent shape above you, your genes didn't make it to the next round. So our brains got really good at freaking out about threats from above, even if the threats have mostly moved on. Fast forward a few million years, and we've traded branches for office chairs, but the wiring never got the memo. A creak on the stairs? You check once. A sudden shadow crossing the ground? Your whole body flinches before you can explain it. That's your inner tree dweller screaming, "Something's coming, and it has claws." How's that for outdated software running on a very modern brain? Then we add culture on top, and it just pours gasoline on that old fear. Myths about thunderbirds, dragons, giant eagles stealing heroes, cartoons where a massive bird carries someone off, viral videos of eagles snatching kids in parks, even when they're fake. We love that image. It's dramatic, it's cinematic, and it totally doesn't match reality. Believe it or not, you're way more likely to be taken out by a badly placed ladder than by any animal in the sky. Let's do a quick reality check. Raptors almost never kill people. We're talking scattered historical anecdotes, not trends. Meanwhile, dogs, cars, even furniture rack up injury stats every single day. Chairs are out here doing more damage than eagles, guys. But which one feels scarier in your gut? The Labrador or the golden eagle dive bombing in slow motion? And here's the twist that really matters for the birds. All that fear, all that storytelling, doesn't just live in our heads. It spills out as persecution, as shoot it before it takes the sheep, as poisoning and nest destruction and laws that came way too late. What if I told you the same imagination that invented sky monsters is now one of the quiet forces pushing real, rare raptors closer to the edge? Speaking of, let's get back to it, because in the next part, we're going to see exactly how our fear, our power, and our technology turned us into the most dangerous predator these animals have ever faced. Imagine this. A shadow passes over your field. You look up, see an eagle, and your first thought isn't awe. It's, "That thing is coming for my lambs." You'd think that if enough people believe that story, it must be true, right? Believe it or not, that fear alone has gotten a lot of raptors killed. Across farms and ranches, especially where money is tight, some people still shoot or poison eagles, hawks, and owls preemptively. Not because they just watched one fly off with a sheep, but because they heard that eagles routinely take livestock. It feels safer to pull the trigger first. The twist is, when biologists actually check what these birds are eating, the numbers don't back the fear. Studies in Europe and North America keep finding the same thing. Livestock is a tiny fraction of their diet, often scavenged, not hunted. Meanwhile, rodents? Everywhere. In some farm landscapes, raptors are taking thousands of mice and voles a year, silently doing pest control for free, while getting blamed for a missing chicken they never touched. It's like firing your best employee because of a rumor in the break room. And it's not just economics, it's stories. In some regions, people grow up hearing that eagles snatch babies from courtyards, or that certain owls steal souls or bring death if they land on your roof. When you mix that with real stress, failed crops, sick animals, no safety net, a rare bird suddenly becomes an easy scapegoat. One bad season, one dead goat, and the baby-snatching sky monster myth feels like proof, not superstition. But when researchers actually open up pellets and study remains, the picture is way less dramatic and way more useful. Many medium and large raptors are rodent specialists. They hammer rats in grain stores, pick off gophers that chew through irrigation lines, and clean up carcasses that could spread disease. How's that for an ally? The same hooked beak. We fear is also cutting down the pests eating our food. We've seen what happens when we swap myths for data. In cities where peregrine falcons were reintroduced after DDT, people were nervous at first. Are they going to attack joggers on the riverfront? What if I told you their favorite urban snack turned out to be pigeons? Yeah, you heard me right. The so-called sky terror is basically a precision-guided pigeon removal system. Once outreach programs started showing school kids slow-motion footage and explaining that, persecution dropped and peregrine numbers climbed. And that's the real point of this whole question about why raptors don't hunt us. It isn't trivia. It's a crowbar you can use to pry open fear. When you understand that these animals are finely tuned to hunt prey that isn't us, it gets harder to justify shooting, poisoning, or tearing down every nest, just in case. Because as we'll see next, the deadliest thing in the sky for raptors isn't talons or beaks at all. It's our bullets, our wires, and our poisons. And those, unlike the myths, are very real. So if we're the real danger in this story, why does it sometimes feel like the opposite? Imagine you're a wildlife photographer in the Amazon, crouched in the heat, lens up, totally focused. The forest goes quiet. A shadow passes over you. And then a harpy eagle drops so low over your head that you feel the punch of air from its wings on your neck. You don't see talons. You don't need to. Your whole body just lights up. Your heart slams. Your stomach drops. You'd think, with all your big human brain knowledge about how rare attacks are, you'd stay calm, right? Nope. Your vision tunnels, your hands shake, and every cell is suddenly screaming one thing: move. Or you're a climber halfway up a cliff, fingers cramping on a tiny ledge, when a golden eagle screams above you. The sound ricochets off the rock so hard, it feels like it's inside your skull. For a split second, you're not a person on a weekend adventure. You are prey on a wall with nowhere to go. Maybe it's less dramatic. You're just jogging at dusk, headphones in, when something brushes your hat. A barred owl has ghosted past, so close its wing actually clips the fabric. You duck, you swear, you spin around like, "What was that?" And the owl is already gone, back to hunting mice, as if it didn't just shave 10 years off your life. Believe it or not, that reaction is doing exactly what it was built to do. Our nervous system is tuned to freak out about sudden fast movement above us. That ancient alarm doesn't care that this particular creature specializes in monkeys or rabbits. For most of our history, if something big and silent dropped out of the sky, overreacting was the safer bet. So your body hits the panic button. Adrenaline spikes, blood shunts to your legs. Your brain narrows down to fight, flight, or freeze. Intellectually, you know this animal is not a movie monster. Physically, your system is acting like you're in a horror film. Here's the mismatch. Evolution wrote its code when we were soft, unarmed primates on open ground. Raptors evolved to grab things roughly the size of a rabbit, a monkey, maybe a small goat, not a 70-kilogram ape that throws rocks and invents guns. Our fear is ancient. Their hunting strategy is too. The two just don't actually line up. Most close passes are not assassination attempts. They're warnings when you're near a nest, curiosity about this weird, upright animal, or pure coincidence as the bird is laser-locked on a squirrel that happens to be running near your head. True predatory attacks on humans are so rare they make headlines precisely because they almost never happen. But those stories you just imagined? They matter. They're the bridge between the data and your gut. When you feel seen in that fear, it gets a lot easier to pivot from "kill it before it kills me" to "wow, this thing is just trying to survive around us." And once you start seeing raptors as neighbors instead of nightmares, a new question creeps in. If they're not really hunting us, what are we doing that keeps killing them? So once you start seeing raptors as neighbors instead of nightmares, your brain does something funny. It jumps straight to sci-fi. You start wondering, okay, but could they ever flip the script? Could a future city hawk or eagle actually specialize on us, the same way some now laser focus on pigeons or monkeys? On paper, you'd think it sounds possible. We're everywhere. We walk around in the open, and we're pretty slow compared to, say, a terrified rabbit. But evolution is not a horror movie writer. For a hunting strategy to become a real inherited trait, you need consistent, heavy pressure that rewards the animals who do that thing and punishes the ones who don't. Over generations. Across a whole population. That's not just one bold bird having a bad idea on a Tuesday. So imagine what would actually have to happen. Raptors that attack humans would need to get more food, raise more chicks, and survive longer than raptors that leave us alone. The risk would have to be low, the payoff huge, and the behavior common. In reality, it's the opposite. We're big. We fight back. We come with jackets, helmets, and umbrellas. And, believe it or not, we also come with lawyers, news cameras, and wildlife officers. Any hint of systematic attacks would trigger exactly what you're picturing. Headlines, viral videos, people demanding action, and humans are extremely efficient apex predators with tools. A single golden eagle that nails a jogger might make the news. A population that started targeting people would be trapped, shot, or relocated into oblivion long before any hunt humans gene could spread. The first wave of experimental birds is also the last wave, and the risk for the bird is massive. A raptor lives on a knife edge, one broken wing, one snapped talon, and it starves. Taking on prey that can kick, punch, throw rocks, or just yank it out of the air is a terrible business model. That's why even crowned eagles, which can kill monkeys and sometimes injure children, still show stomach contents full of monkeys and small antelope, not some secret history of human hunting. So what actually evolves in a human-dominated world? Not man-eaters. Much more likely you get birds that tolerate us, thread power lines without dying, nest on skyscrapers, and switch to new prey we've kindly provided, like invasive rats and city pigeons. Peregrine falcons didn't move into downtowns to chase office workers. They came for the flying buffets around our high-rises. What if I told you that, from an evolutionary standpoint, the smartest move is not to target us, but to ghost us? The raptors that thrive are the ones that either ignore humans or use our mess without triggering our wrath. How's that for an anticlimactic monster story? And yet, even when they're doing everything right, we still keep killing them. Not with teeth and claws, but with something way quieter and way more permanent. Not with teeth and claws, but with our chemicals, our cars, and our concrete. And here's the twist you probably didn't see coming. When we wipe out raptors, we're not just killing some cool bird in the sky. We're poking holes in our own life support system. Imagine the landscape around you like a giant health monitor. Raptors are the warning lights. When hawks, eagles, owls, and vultures are doing well, it usually means the whole system underneath them is working. Clean water trickling through streams, stable soils held in place by roots, and food webs where nothing explodes out of control and nothing important quietly disappears. You'd think that's just nice for nature, right? Nope. That's the same water you drink, the same ground your house sits on, the same fields that grow your food. And these monsters we're scared of? They're basically unpaid pest control. A single barn owl family can eat thousands of rodents in a year. Thousands. Those are rats and mice that would be chewing through grain, wiring, and, oh yeah, spreading diseases like hantavirus and leptospirosis. Red-tailed hawks cruising over highways and fields are doing the same thing, turning potential infestations into a quick lunch. Falcons take it up a level in cities. Peregrines that moved into skyscrapers are hammering pigeon populations. Believe it or not, that's not just about less cooing on your windowsill. Pigeon droppings are acidic enough to eat away at stone and metal, and they can carry pathogens that make people sick. A falcon on a high-rise ledge is basically a sleek, feathered maintenance crew, saving buildings and lungs at the same time. Then you've got the cleanup team, vultures. Yeah, you heard me right. The bald, ominous ones everyone loves to cast as villains. In reality, they're more like hazmat workers with wings. They find dead animals fast, strip a carcass down in minutes, and, thanks to insanely strong stomach acid, they destroy a lot of the nasty bacteria that would otherwise bloom in that rotting mess. In places where vultures have crashed, we've seen rabies and other diseases spike because feral dogs move in on the carcasses instead, and those dogs bite people and livestock. So when raptors keep rodents down, pigeons in check, and dead bodies off the menu for everything else, they're acting as a safety net between us and outbreaks we really don't want. From a human health perspective, they protect us way more than they ever threaten us. How's that for a plot twist? And here's where it gets personal. What if I told you that supporting raptor rehab centers, nest box programs, and protecting a patch of hunting habitat on the edge of town isn't just charity for some rare creature? It's insurance for your own community. Fewer poisons, fewer pests, fewer chances for weird diseases to jump the fence. Guys, one of the absolute best things you can do might be as simple as helping keep a hawk in the air. Because in the next part, we're going to look at what happens when those wings vanish, and how fast the system can unravel. So what happens when those wings don't just thin out? They almost disappear. Imagine looking up at a rainforest canopy that should be alive with screams and wing beats, and instead it's just quiet. Meet the Philippine eagle. This thing is a flying tank with feathers. One of the biggest eagles on Earth, 7-foot wingspan, shaggy crest, eyes that look straight through you. It lives high in the steamy rainforests of just a few Philippine islands, gliding between giant trees and dropping onto monkeys, flying lemurs, even big snakes like it's nothing. You'd think a predator like that would be thriving. Top of the food chain, right? Believe it or not, we've cut that chain almost all the way through. Most estimates say there might be fewer than 1,000 left in the wild. Some biologists quietly think it's closer to a few hundred. Logging rips out the old-growth trees they need to nest. Roads slice forests into useless fragments. And every so often, someone still shoots one, just because it's big and looks scary. Here's the twist. They have never been a real predatory threat to us. This bird can crush a monkey's skull, but it wants nothing to do with a healthy adult human. We're too big, too risky, too weird. One broken talon, one bad wing, and a hunter becomes a starving corpse on the forest floor. From the eagle's point of view, that's just bad math. And it's not just the Philippine eagle on the brink. Spanish imperial eagles in Europe, once ruling over open woodlands, crashed because of power line collisions, poisoned baits, and habitat loss. Some harpy eagle populations in Central and South America are vanishing as the last big trees come down. In Asia and Africa, vultures that used to darken the sky are now some of the rarest birds around, wiped out by toxic livestock drugs, poisoned carcasses, and, again, us. How's that for irony? The deadliest raptors in the sky, perfectly built to kill, might vanish forever without ever having truly hunted us. We told monster stories about them, and then quietly became the real monster in theirs. There is a bit of a plot twist, though. People are fighting back on their behalf. Philippine eagles are being bred in captivity, with chicks carefully paired and raised, then released into protected forests. Nest guarding teams camp under trees so a single egg doesn't get poached or shot. In Spain, legal protections, power line fixes, and feeding programs have helped Spanish imperial eagles slowly climb back from the edge. Vulture-safe drugs, community education, and strict laws have started to stabilize a few populations that were in free fall. What if I told you that every time we save one of these birds, we're saving a story that took millions of years to write? When a species like the Philippine eagle goes, it's not just one animal missing from a field guide. It's an entire branch of the tree of life snapped off. And here's the really scary part. We still don't know what happens to our world when too many of those branches break. In the next part, we're going to get a glimpse. And here's the really scary part. We still don't know what happens to our world when too many of those branches break. In the next part, we're going to get a glimpse. But before we zoom back out to the big picture, I want to zoom in on you for a second. Because this whole story of sky predators and fragile branches, it's not just something that happens in documentaries or remote jungles. It happens over your driveway, above your lake, right outside your window. Imagine you're in your backyard, coffee in hand, when a hawk starts circling low over the fence line. It's not attacking, it's not fleeing, it's just watching. Or you're on a night walk and an owl is parked on a streetlight, staring straight down at you like it's reading your browser history. You'd think you're the apex predator in that moment, right? And yet, it feels exactly the opposite. Some of you have had falcons blast past your balcony so close you could feel the air move. Others have paddled across a lake with a bald eagle or sea eagle gliding silently overhead, tracking your kayak like a slow, patient drone. Those moments are weirdly intense. 1 second you're just a person doing errands, the next you're being scanned by an animal built to kill. That eye contact hits different. There's this split second where you feel an ancient, calculating mind lock onto you, run the numbers, and then casually dismiss you as irrelevant. Not food, not a threat, just a clumsy, hairless giant wandering through its hunting ground. How's that for a reality check? I want to hear those moments. When did you feel like prey? Or like an intruder who'd just walked into the wrong neighborhood? Drop it in the comments. Where were you? What species do you think it was? And what went through your head in that instant? Did you freeze, laugh, duck, or just pretend you weren't low-key terrified? Believe it or not, guys, one of the absolute best things you can do for raptors is exactly this: tell your stories. When you all share those backyard hawk passes, the midnight owl stare-downs, the eagle flyovers on camping trips, we start to see patterns. We see how often these encounters end the same way. No attack, no drama, just mutual non-aggression and everyone going home. What if I told you that your creepy owl watched me walk to my car story is actually data? It shows how these rare hunters navigate our cities, our suburbs, our lakes, without turning us into targets. It makes them less like horror movie monsters and more like what they really are: cautious, energy-saving professionals who almost always decide we're not worth the risk. So scroll down after this video, read a few other encounters, add yours, and really look at how often the sky notices us, and then lets us go. Speaking of, let's get back to it, because next we're going to peel back the biology and see exactly why those calculations almost never end with us on the menu. So when you add all those close calls and flybys together, a pretty clear picture starts to form. Imagine you could climb into a harpy's head, a crowned eagle's head, a peregrine's, an owl's. What are they actually seeing when they see you? You'd think the answer would be walking buffet. These are animals that can snap monkey spines, drag goats off cliffs, and hit pigeons at over 200 miles an hour. Yet across species, across continents, the pattern is boringly consistent: avoidance, nest defense, and a whole lot of indifference. Harpies in the Amazon slip deeper into the canopy when people show up. Crowned eagles in African forests shadow you from the trees, then melt away. Golden eagles on open cliffs watch, maybe scream if you get near a nest, then go back to hunting goats. Owls? Half the time, they just pretend you don't exist. So what box do we actually go in? Based on decades of field notes and way too many long, mosquito-filled stakeouts, humans seem to land in two main categories: large, potentially dangerous animal, or environmental disturbance. Not food. Our upright posture, our eye contact, our tendency to walk straight toward things instead of slinking like normal prey, all scream problem more than snack. To a raptor, we're closer to a bear stomping through the woods or a sudden landslide than to a tasty monkey. And you see that in how they react. If you're near a nest, the switch flips to defense. Dive bombs, wing slaps, those famous owl hits to the back of the head on joggers. It's not hunting behavior, it's get away from my kids energy. Move back 10 meters, and the same bird usually breaks off instantly. No pursuit, no follow-up. No, maybe I'll try a leg next time. How's that for a deadly predator that supposedly wants to eat us? Of course, individuals are all over the map. Some urban peregrines and redtails basically shrug at people. They nest on skyscrapers, hunt over highways, and let you walk underneath as if you're part of the furniture. Others, especially in remote areas, flush at the first hint of a human silhouette. But here's the key. In both cases, tolerant or terrified, we don't see them experimenting with us as prey. No gradual testing, no learned strategy for how to take a human. Just more or less comfort with having the big hairless neighbor nearby. Now, believe it or not, this is where science has to eat a little humble pie. We can't literally know what a harpy thinks. There's no tiny bird MRI showing a human light blinking on. What we do have are thousands of encounters, stomach content studies, camera traps, and long-term banding projects that all point in the same direction. When the world's top aerial hunters meet us, they react like we're powerful, unpredictable neighbors, something to watch, avoid, or occasionally challenge around a nest, but not a resource to systematically exploit. So to the deadliest predators in the sky, we're not prey, not partners, not some secret missing target. We're a risk, a disturbance, a force that reshapes their world far more by bulldozers and power lines than by anything we do face to face. And in the next section, we're going to flip the script completely and look at how, from the raptor's point of view, we're the real super predator in this story. So let's zoom out for a second, because this whole thing is kind of wild when you lay it side by side. Above you are animals with talons like knives, beaks that can crack bone, and dive speeds that make sports cars look lazy. And yet, they almost never look at you and think, lunch. How's that for a plot twist? You'd think, just based on the hardware, that we'd be on the menu. A harpy eagle can snatch a monkey off a branch in seconds. Golden eagles knock goats off cliffs. Crowned eagles in Africa have skull-cracking power. But imagine running the tape of evolution. For millions of years, these creatures fine-tuned themselves on monkeys, rodents, fish, rabbits, small antelope. Humans only show up as a common, upright, tool-using neighbor in the last tiny sliver of that story. We never became their primary prey because, in their world, we never filled that prey slot. On top of that history, there's the simple physics problem. Most big eagles can only carry about a third of their own body weight in flight. That's perfect for a sloth or a jackrabbit. It is not perfect for a 60-kilogram primate in a puffy jacket waving its arms and screaming. Even if they hit us, they can't really fly off with us, and holding on to something that big mid-air is a great way to end up with a broken wing or shredded feathers. And for a raptor, an injury isn't a bad day. It's a death sentence. A cracked bone, a torn tendon, a few ruined flight feathers, and suddenly you can't hunt, can't maneuver, can't even dodge the next predator. So when a bird of prey runs its risk-reward calculus, a combative primate that can grab, kick, and throw rocks is a terrible bet. We're not just big. We're dangerous in a very weird, grabby, tool-using way. Behaviorally, they're also locked into what works. Raptors are specialists. Fish eagles take fish. Owl species dial in on rodents. Harpy eagles go for tree-dwelling mammals. Their hunting strategies, their eyesight, even the timing of their flights are tuned to those targets, not to bipedal apes walking dogs and checking phones. And when they did experiment with getting close to us, we shot them, poisoned them, trapped them. Over generations, the ones that kept their distance survived. Believe it or not, many young raptors literally learn, from parents and from bad experiences, that humans equal trouble. That's why documented attacks are so rare and so specific. A golden eagle dive-bombing a hiker near a nest, an owl smacking a jogger on a dark trail, a kid scratched in a freak incident. When biologists dig into these cases, they overwhelmingly turn out to be defense, territorial warning, or mistaken identity, not some secret campaign to eat people. So the real twist isn't, why don't they kill us? It's that, from their point of view, we're the super predator rewriting the rules of the sky. We're the ones wiping out habitat, stringing up power lines, emptying their food webs, and deciding which species get a second chance. And in the next section, we're going to lean into that uncomfortable truth. What if I told you that whether these killers of the sky survive us has way more to do with our choices than with their claws? So, if we're the ones holding the pen, that giant shadow we started with suddenly looks very different. Imagine that harpy eagle silhouette sliding over you again, talons longer than a grizzly bear's claws, and realizing the most dangerous animal in that scene is you. You'd think a bird that can kill a monkey in seconds or knock a goat off a cliff would see us as walking buffet tables, right? But now we know the math doesn't work. Most big eagles can only carry about a third of their own weight. An adult human is not a snack. We're a self-propelled lawsuit with shoes. One bad kick, one broken bone, and that raptor starves. So evolution quietly trained them to ignore us, while we very loudly learned to shoot, poison, and bulldoze them. And that flips the whole predator story. We opened with fear. You, tiny under a killing machine in the sky. But in reality, that killing machine is dodging power lines, losing hunting grounds, and trying not to eat rodents laced with rat poison. Believe it or not, humans kill more raptors every single year than raptors have killed humans in all of recorded history. How's that for a plot twist? That twist comes with a catch, though. We're the only species that can knock out an entire food web with a zoning plan or save it with a protected area. No eagle, no owl, no shark, no rare little forest creature gets to vote on that. We do. So the question isn't, will they ever decide to hunt us? The real question is, will we decide to let them keep existing at all? And what do we actually lose if we say no? Not just some cool bird photos. We lose free pest control when hawks stop clearing rodents from fields and cities. We lose ecological balance when scavengers and hunters vanish and carcasses pile up or prey explodes. We lose that living, breathing connection to the age of dinosaurs every time a vulture or eagle disappears from the skyline. You're not just watching an animal go extinct, you're watching a whole chapter of Earth's story get ripped out. So maybe the mindset shift is this. Instead of scanning the sky, wondering if something up there wants to eat you, you look up and ask, is anything up there left for me to protect? Curiosity instead of paranoia. Guardianship instead of ghost stories. And guys, one of the absolute best things you can do is stop treating yourself like a background extra. You're already in this story, whether you like it or not. In the next section, we're going to get very specific about that. What if I told you that what you buy, what you share, and where you live could quietly decide which of these hunters survives the century, and which one becomes a rumor? So let's cash that out, because this is the part where you stop being a spectator. Imagine every choice you make as a tiny vote for the kind of sky you want over your head, full of hunting silhouettes and wild screams, or just empty blue. Guys, one of the absolute best things you can do is start local. Somewhere near you, there is a raptor rehab center quietly patching up broken wings from car strikes and window hits, feeding half-frozen owls that slammed into power lines, and then tossing them back into the wild like feathery boomerangs. If you can donate, do it. If you can't, share their posts, volunteer, ask what they need. You'd think $5 or one Saturday wouldn't matter, but to a starving kestrel with a concussion? It's the whole universe. Zoom out a bit. Harpy eagles, vultures, Golden eagles. They don't just need sympathy, they need actual land. Forest. Cliffs. Thermals. So support the people fighting for that. There are organizations protecting eagle nesting cliffs from development and vulture feeding grounds from being paved into parking lots. Believe it or not, even a tiny monthly donation or a membership is a signal that someone cares if these animals are still around in 50 years. Now, your everyday habits. This is where it gets uncomfortably simple. Skip the rodent poison. Those harmless pellets don't just kill rats. They climb the food chain into owls, hawks, and coyotes. You want a natural pest control squad? Let the raptors do their job without poisoning their dinner. Same with fishing line and hooks. If you fish, pack it out. A single loop of line can pin a young osprey to a branch like a trap. And no, they do not magically chew themselves free as if this was some Disney movie. And if you find a nest, back off. Raptors dive at people almost only when we blunder too close to eggs or chicks. Give them a wide berth in breeding season. Keep drones away, and use your camera zoom instead of your feet. What if I told you the best close encounter you can have is one where the bird doesn't even notice you were there? There's also the boring but powerful stuff. Politics. Contact your representatives about protecting key habitats, backing bans on the worst chemicals, and pushing for safer power lines and smarter wind turbines that don't turn migration routes into blender mode. One email is whatever. 10,000 emails is policy. If this changed how you see these hunters, hit like, subscribe, and share it with the one friend who still thinks eagles are out there hunting joggers. Drop your own close encounter story or your favorite raptor species in the comments. I really want to see which sky predator owns this audience, because every single day, the deadliest predators in the sky look down at us and choose not to hunt us. The least we can do is choose not to destroy them. So imagine we're back where we started. You're on a ridge, or just crossing a busy city street, when a shadow slides over you. Last time, that was just a creepy, cinematic moment. Now you know that in that split second, a brain shaped by millions of years of survival just did the math and decided you're not worth the risk. You'd think a creature with talons longer than a grizzly bear's claws would at least consider it, right? A harpy eagle can crush a monkey in seconds. Golden eagles slam into goats and drag them off cliffs. Crowned eagles in Africa hit antelope hard enough to kill. The hardware is there. But the software says no. Too big, too dangerous, too likely to break a wing and turn a top predator into a starving bird on the forest floor. Raptors are living dinosaurs. Not in the cute, chicken is a T-Rex meme way, but in the sense that their entire body plan is a refined, streamlined hunting machine that's been test-driven for tens of millions of years. And then there's us. We've been modern humans for, 300,000 years? Blink of an eye. Yet in that blink, we've paved their hunting grounds, drained their wetlands, and put glass and steel in the middle of their flyways. So this isn't a war, it's a negotiation. Space, food, safety. They shift their nests to power poles and skyscrapers. We shift our lives under a sky full of wires and wind turbines. Believe it or not, they're adapting faster than we are. Peregrines nesting on office towers. Redtails using highway medians as buffets. Owls hunting in stadium lights like it's a supermarket aisle. Next time you see a hawk on a lamppost, just pause for a second. That bird is perfectly capable of opening up a rabbit, a squirrel, sometimes even a small deer. It looks down at your dog, at your kid, at you, and doesn't launch. Same with the owl you spot ghosting along a fence line at night. Silent wings, night vision eyes, and it still threads its way around us like we're obstacles, not opportunities. What if I told you that on the raptor side of this deal, the restraint is already built in? Fatal attacks on humans are so rare they're basically weird historical footnotes. On our side, we kill them by the tens of thousands with cars, poisons, windows, and habitat loss, as if the planet came with infinite replacement hawks in the box. So here's the quiet, hopeful bit. If the deadliest hunters in the sky can learn to live around us without turning us into prey, maybe we can finally learn to live around them without turning them into ghosts. Guys, one of the absolute best things you can do is notice that shadow, look up, and remember the choice being made above you. Because once you see that, it gets a lot harder to be the real monster in this story. So here's the one-line truth I want you to walk away with. Raptors don't ignore us because they can't take us. They ignore us because evolution, physics, and pure risk calculation all agree. We're just not worth the trouble. You'd think a bird that can snap a monkey's spine or drag a goat off a cliff would at least consider a slow, squishy human, right? But imagine running a cost-benefit analysis with your life on the line every single day. Most big eagles can only carry about a third of their own body weight. We are way over the baggage limit. One bad kick, one broken feather, one cracked bone, and that bold experiment ends in starvation. From the sky's point of view, we're a glitchy, dangerous snack that never made it out of beta. So when that shadow passes over you tomorrow, remember what's really happening. A creature with talons longer than a grizzly bear's claws, eyes that can see a rabbit a mile away, and a brain wired by millions of years of huntings looking down, clocking you, and choosing not to attack. How's that for a plot twist in the whole nature is out to get you story? If this changed how you look at the sky even a little, do the usual YouTube rituals, but do them with intent. Tap like so the algorithm knows you're into real animals, not just movie monsters. Hit subscribe if you want more deep dives into the predators, the prey, and the ones that might not be here much longer. And share this with that one friend who is still convinced every hawk is scouting their chihuahua, as if all raptors wouldn't do that if they actually could. Guys, one of the absolute best things you can do doesn't even happen on this video. Check the description. I've linked raptor conservation groups, rehab centers that patch up injured hawks and owls, and some really good further reading on the species we talked about. If you've ever wanted your views to turn into something real, that's where it happens. I want to hear from you too. After watching this, do you feel more afraid of raptors, less afraid, or just more in awe? Have you ever donated to a bird of prey center, visited one, or seen a release where a healed eagle or owl went back to the wild? Drop that story in the comments. What if I told you those tiny choices and those tiny stories add up to whether these wings stay in our skies or not? And if you want to see the flip side of this whole "we're not worth it" thing, I've got you covered. Check out the video on animals that really do see us as prey, or the one on creatures so rare they're hanging on by a thread. Same stakes, different angle. As we close, picture this: slow motion, an eagle's eye filling the frame. The nictitating membrane slides across, that ancient eye blinks, and the world goes dark for a split second. The sky is watching us back, and for now, it's still choosing to let us walk beneath it. I'll see you in the next one, and